Hello and welcome to the latest in our Imagine Live broadcasts from Ericsson. I am your host, Dr. Alex Krotowski, and today we are reimagining entertainment. How does accelerating technological progress and enhanced connectivity reshape the world faster than ever? It's already transforming what we can achieve, how we work, interact, socialize, and crucially, for today's broadcast, how we entertain ourselves. We're just at the start. 5G and 6G connectivity will change how we do things from years ago. And today, we've got two great guests who are going to share some of their incredible projects. They will get us excited about developments going on in the world today, and then they will help me peer into my magic crystal ball to imagine what the future of entertainment might look like. Our first guest is Julia Sánchez. She is the CEO of the Reina Sofia School of Music in Madrid. Welcome to you, Julia. We are delighted to have you here. How are you today?
I'm fine, just going through COVID, but feeling fine. So, really happy to be here.
Oh, that's wonderful. I hope you continue to feel well. This is, well, as we know, it's a global pandemic. Our next guest is Professor Mischa Dohler, and he is the Chief Architect and Senior Advisor at the Advanced Technology Group in Ericsson. How are you today, Mischa? I hope you're not battling COVID as well.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Greetings from Silicon Valley. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Well, thank you both for joining. Mischa, I'm going to start with you because I understand you had quite an exciting event recently. You performed in the world's first 5G concert. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, the headline was very simple, but what was really under the hood was everything you can imagine. There was art, there was technology, there was emotion. But back then, when I was a professor at King's College in London, we helped co-design the first kind of operational 5G system in the UK. And we thought, let's give it some soul, right? So as engineers, we like to build boxes and write code, and then often people don't understand, what do we use it for? So we thought, hey, let's give it some purpose. And me being a musician, my family being musician, we thought, hey, why don't we just make this a real concert? So I flew to Berlin, and I was sitting under the Brandenburger Tor playing the piano. And I had Noah, my older daughter, in London, in the Guildhall, which is actually, one of the oldest entertainment venues in the UK. The Romans, the Italians brought it 2,000 years ago. We thought, let's marry this very historic venue with this very modern technology. And she was beamed in live. And, the first time I really felt the power of this fully immersive technology. We are used to Zoom, we're used to Teams, we're used to speaking over the internet, but there's always a latency we experience, right? So there's a delay between us interacting. Now, when we meet in person, the latency is actually, so the delay is down at 20 milliseconds or below, which creates really that emotional bond, right? And we weren't able to feel that before until we designed 5G, and we had this there. I was in Berlin. My daughter was in London. She was with me. She was, she was actually physically with me whilst actually being 1,000 kilometers apart. And this night had everything, right? It had new tech. It had, it had suspension because sometimes some of the new components wouldn't work. But above all, it had a lot of emotion because I was there with my daughter, right? And when I was playing, I really struggled not to cry that night. And we really wanted to show the world, what can you do with this amazing tech?
Which is extraordinary, I have to say. I mean, what an event for both of you. What fantastic locations, but also what technology. And speaking of technology, before we dive into the specifics of how you created that extraordinary event and the emotions that came out of it, I want to remind our viewers that we've got people watching from all over the world, and everybody has the opportunity to ask questions at any time. I'll be peppering them in throughout the broadcast. Please do ask your questions on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on Twitter. I've just invented that one. TM, yeah. Thank you very much. That one's mine. But we've got people joining from India, Toronto, Bolivia, and China. And now let's get back to the program. Mischa, I want to find out a little bit more about the technologies that enabled this concert. You mentioned latency in the past. I have, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we tried such projects, but they were almost impossible. What's happened now that allows you to create these very, synchronistic experiences so that they are very emotionally impactful and create beautiful music together?
That's a great question you're asking. So to get really that emotional bond we experience when we meet in real life, you need two things, right? You need immediacy, which is the low latency, and you need the immersion, right? So which is like this very kind of immersive experience you get. So we need low latency networks and high bandwidth networks to transmit all that high data rate, whether that is holographic signals or virtual reality, whatever that is, right? And we really needed 5G to come along, because whilst other networks, you may have used maybe fiber before, 20 years ago, the fiber networks have the bandwidth, but they don't have the low latency, interestingly, because the networks aren't geared for that. So 5G was the networking technology which really brought in for the very first time both of these components. And it did so in a very kind of democratizing way, because whilst, you could lease fiber, it's very expensive. 5G is kind of almost now a commodity technology, which you can sign up as a consumer and use, right? So that's one element. The other really important element, which people always forget, are what we call the codecs, right? So when you make a phone call, a video call, your video signal and audio signal is actually being compressed. Then it's being transmitted, then it's being decompressed, and that is really to save bandwidth. But that process takes a lot of time. It doesn't make sense to build a 1 millisecond network if in the end of the day your codec takes 100 or 200 milliseconds. So my team back then actually pioneered an entirely new field of these very low latency codecs. We borrowed some innovation from different people around the world. So we had to bring in, not only low latency networks, we had to bring in low latency applications, and we had to bring in amazing music to make this all work together.
Julia, this sounds an awful lot like a project that you've run through the Reina School of Music. Can you tell us a little bit about that? It included opera singers and various other artists. Tell me what it was.
Actually, I was listening to Mischa and I was feeling there's a lot of parallelism between both of our projects. So this project organized last year, it was a concert with a duet of singers. They were different locations, like kilometers apart from each other, but they were connected through 5G, thanks to Ericsson and Orange. And it was like a really big challenge. On the one hand, we really wanted to have high quality, so the sound needs to be perfect. And as Mischa was describing, we needed zero latency, like really low latency. So there was like really no audible lag to sing at the same time, simultaneously. And actually have to say it was like a huge success, and the technology worked so well. The sound was perfect. And I would say that visually, actually it kind of added value, the fact that one was singing on the screen, the other was on the stage in front of the audience. So it was a combination, what was seen on the stage with the images coming from the second location. It was an Ukrainian soprano and a Venezuelan tenor. There was a point when they actually look at each other, and you could see the emotions that they felt like they were in person. So it was original, innovative, it was attractive. The stage proposal for the audience was like really authentic, and I think it was the first time that we have a concert like that. So it was really happened because the conversation between the artists and the technicians worked really well.
It is so exciting. Because when you think about the fact that we have been separated by distance and by technology for several years now, not to mention, of course, people that we wanted to collaborate with before, to have this moment is very exciting. I understand that this was a partnership with Ericsson and Orange Spain in Madrid. Julia, let's take a sneak peek now at how it all came together on the day. I'm looking forward to this.
Let's watch it.
Amapola, lindissima amapola, no seas tan ingrata, amame. ¿Cómo puedes tú vivir tan sola?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I could just sit and listen to that for hours. So if you wouldn't mind sending that video over, I'll just put it on loop. Julia, a big part of music, as Mischa mentioned, is this connection and the emotion between players. How did playing remotely impact that?
I think the fact that they were connected through the screen make it really as it was real. So I think what the audience felt, as I said before, is like they were like really looking at each other, and the low latency and everything became like really, really senseful. I would say that you couldn't feel that they were any type of physical distance.
Mischa, did you feel the same when you were playing with your daughter?
Yeah, it was, as musicians, we're kind of really cued on the audio beats. So that's really important. And you've seen it also, in the video which Julie just showed, the musicians really listen to each other on the audio. So the audio needs to be ultra low latency, and the images could even be a little bit later. Of course, now we have Julia's, a test bed, or the setup had actually allowed both video and audio to go very low latency. But yeah, it's once you get the audio very low latency, musicians click, tick, bond, and you got that emotional thing, what you really wanted from out of this platform.
Before we move on to my next questions, Your Honor, I have a question in from Argentina. Mariano raises an important point, and I'd like to throw this to you, Julia. It's about intellectual property. Mariano says, hello from Argentina. How are you assessing the protection of these technologies for capturing their creative value? Is using intellectual property considered? And I think that actually I'm going to throw this to both of you. Julia, I'd love to hear what you think about that from the point of view of the creator, and Mischa, perhaps from the technological point of view.
Well, I think this is one of the challenges that we face. I think intellectual property has to be protected from the standpoint of the creator as well as the performers, who are also have the rights. And I think that is really, really important that you sit everyone on the table and everyone agrees on what it has to be protected according to the international and national laws, and as well that you get all the rights from the performers.
Mischa, from the technological point of view, Julia raises an important point about, it's the performers, it's the international issues as well. Technologically, are you considering IP when you are when Ericsson is developing these new entertainment vehicles?
So it's a brilliant question, and really comes to the core of the music industry. And I think there are two elements. So from a tech point of view, we are able to really audit, let's say, the art which is being created. So we have means of doing that. We can record things. We can put them on the blockchain. We can cross-correlate that. The question, of course, is how this will be enforced, which is out of the remit of the technology players today. But at least from a tech point of view, we can do that. The other element I'd like to bring in is really what the 5G story really allows us to develop platforms, right? Think of it, we're developing this internet of music. So, and we're starting to create new art forms. We're really like jamming and jazzing over the internet. And really that is what we are after, like the ability to create a new art form on the run. And if we can combine that with the IP protection, copyright protection, that would be, I think, a win-win really to humanity.
Yeah, it is. I mean, these things, new technologies always bump up against our existing social systems. And so this is just yet another way as you imagine what is possible in the future. You gotta think of these types of things as well, because If you don't, somebody else will. We still have people joining us, and they're coming in from Kenya, from Ethiopia, from Kazakhstan, from Libya, and also from Paris. At the moment, I want to cast the net a little bit wider than what it was that we were talking about right now with your two specific projects, and talk about what is possible today and what's just around the corner. Julia, how can you see this type of technology and this type of connectivity being used by other creatives?
Well, I think, music is communication and technology is communication. So technology really enhances the communication and breaks down many barriers, especially the physical one, as we've seen. So it really opens a range of options. I'm seeing, given what we saw in our projects, that technology can be offered from anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world. Access to education can be expanded. So, for educators, for performers, it's really useful. You can have, the best piano teacher or singer in Europe and students connected all over the world. So it really opens the opportunity from educators and performers to connect all over the world.
And it's exciting about what is possible, but truly there is a big hurdle that we need to leap over, and that is that technology is not necessarily distributed evenly. And Mischa, at the moment it is exclusive. What you guys have created has been very exciting, but there's a lot that's going on in the background that has made this possible. And most people don't have access to this type of thing. Music has always been democratized. It's, the innovations have come from the bottom up rather necessarily than the top down. And those are the people who are the least likely to have access to all kinds of new whiz-bang technologies that allow them to imagine this type of future. So if people cannot access this technology, how do you imagine, Mischa, that they can participate?
Look, I think it's a hugely important point, and Rome wasn't built in a single day. Okay, full stop. So we're really making baby steps here, and in fact, we have gotten much closer to democratizing the participation in that global music jamming of this Internet of Music, in a sense, right? So if you think about it, to do what really Julia and Julia's team have done at production level, and that's really important. We have done, kind of the precursor. We have played around with the tech with Ericsson and Kings back then, but Julia really, and kudos to Julia and Julia's team, really, they have taken this and said, hey, let's do really at this at production level. So, these are the first steps. We need to evangelize the technology, and they did not need to rent, fiber and buy very expensive audio and video equipment for tens of thousands of euros or dollars or pounds. They could actually use, a quite affordable technology to do the recording. They could use 5G, which right now isn't really a predominant technology around the world, but it is being rolled out by operators, right? So as we start rolling this out, it becomes more and more accessible to everybody out there. And then once you buy a data plan, a 5G data plan, you're on the highway, right? You're on the highway like you're with your Wi-Fi on the highway, and suddenly you can jam. You can do it from your living room. You can, as Julia says, democratize that participation. We can have the best sopranos, the best pianists actually take part in real production venues in New York and Madrid, in Berlin and Buenos Aires, around the world. So, and I think, we are getting there. We need a few more years, and we have actually really democratized it so much more than it was 10 years back.
Julia,
Yeah.
the types of things that you're... Oh, please go ahead. I'll ask you a question in a
I
second.
would like to add something what Mischa was saying. I was saying our school is a really good example of an organization that is quite small. We are actually a not-for-profit with low budget, I have to say, but we are able to access this technology. So I think we are a great example of other organizations with, have constraints financially, but they can still have access to that. And this is just doesn't apply exclusively to 5G. I will also mention the virtual reality. So last year we organized a project. It's called Music with Five Senses, that we recorded a symphony of Tchaikovsky with real immersive experience where the person wearing the glasses can really get inside the orchestra that is playing. So you can be facing the conductor or almost touching the piano. And we have included in the experience images from Siberia or getting inside a violin. We are taking this VR content and going to all the schools, and we talk with the students about managing emotions, sadness, happiness, compassion through the emotions they get with this really immersive experience. Teenagers are not always very keen on classical music, so they really react positively to having this immersive experience, and also the use of holograms. And what is really impressive about this technology, the VR, wearing these glasses is, I don't want to talk about money, but it was, less than 10,000 euros to develop all this content. So what I'm saying is costs are really going down. There are many organizations that provide the technology, and what I see is really important that institutions, I see this as a part of an ecosystem, with everybody has to play the part. I think, big corporations are at Ericsson are making the investment in research and development, are doing a big of effort to taking the technology close to the users. But us as users and institutions like educators, we also need to teach students and the new generations on how to leverage this technology and use it and become familiar with it. So, for instance, as part of our core curriculum, we are teaching our musicians and the next artists on use technology, because that will allow them to bring their art close to the audience. So I think education is the key at all different levels, from the government to corporations to the universities and schools.
You've almost answered the question that I was going to ask, which is what are the no, it's perfect, because you've teed me up beautifully. You are creating these extraordinary experiences. I'm a big fan, as anybody who's been watching this series knows. I'm a big fan of this idea of the Internet of senses, the idea of the sights, the sounds, the smells of Tchaikovsky when he was composing his music, bringing that as an immersive experience to explain and to engage people in these types of big ideas. And I'm sure that you are seeing with your students all kinds of big dreams. What's the basic technology that you feel you need in order to start to allow them to experiment with these types of fantastic and quite revolutionary ideas in entertainment?
Yeah, I think there are two types of technologies. One is everything related to connectivity, as we explained before, like 5G and hopefully very soon 6G as well. And I think all the immersive experiences related to augmented reality and virtual reality is already here. We just have to use them and expand them. And then I think holograms. For instance, in Madrid, we have a concert, and it's not just Madrid, I think it toured all over Europe, where Maria Callas, was playing as part of an hologram. And I think, have the option to have these amazing singers become real, although she has passed away a long time ago. That's fantastic. So I think, we have to divide between immersive experiences and connectivity. And then I'm sure we'll probably talk later about the metaverse. It's also like the new technology that we hear more and more. And I think that's going to be the future, and is slightly the present, although it's not yet something very, very popular. But we'll see more of concerts in the metaverse. Yeah.
I think you're right. Mischa, I wanted to throw a question to you from Mohammed. Mohammed's in Syria, and Mohammed says, my question is about the possibility of overcoming possibly weak 5G signal strength to provide intensive coverage as needed, especially in video transmissions. As we mentioned, perhaps we're a little bit more forgiving when it comes to video than we are when it comes to synchronizing audio. For example, no one wants to lose the video entirely for a concert in the middle, or indeed experience a lag. So the question is what is the possibility of overcoming the shortfalls of 5G connectivity in such contexts?
My easy answer to this one is probably call up your local operator and ask them to go a bit for densification of the equipment. So that always helps. There's no magic bullet. You literally need a network which is dense enough and powerful enough to support these use cases. Having said this, as a technology family, we're evolving in small steps. Whilst we call the whole end-to-end family 5G, what happens behind the scenes is called releases, right? So we go in smaller steps, and not all of the features of the latest releases have been implemented by all operators around the world, and therefore, you just need to wait until that is being rolled out. One of the beautiful things about 5G is that upgrades are done in software now. This is a real revolution for us as a telco industry. Before, when we wanted to change something, we literally had to change boxes and antennas and power amplifiers. These days, we can do it with a click of on your mouse and on your laptop from your breakfast table. Yeah, I'm exaggerating. You get the picture, but it is fairly easy to do. So just wait until these features are being rolled out. And if you still have a good 4G signal, then we have something called a handover capability, that your 5G signal is being handed over to 4G. That is all possible today. And I hope your coverage gets better, your experience gets better, and you will be able to join the fast lane, the global fast lane, and help us music jam, and create new art forms in the near future.
Mischa, I want to stick with you right now, looking at the medium term of where we are going. We haven't talked about different forms of entertainment. We haven't talked about sport. We haven't talked about anything but music. I'm happy to stay in music, but to answer this question, if you want to look at the wider world of entertainment and sport, who are the people who are creating change in this field, who are really pushing the boundaries when it comes to whether it's Internet of Senses or some of these other more synchronous projects?
So from a tech point of view, Ericsson is really leading a lot of the thought leadership and the technology implementation. So, it is not a straightforward jump from saying, let's make a video call or an audio call and then go to a full Internet of Senses. It requires a lot of thought leadership. It requires a lot of technology development. And currently we're doing this, right? So we're looking at developing new codecs. The world is looking at a holographic volumetric codecs. We're looking at entirely new ways of transmitting data. We really paid a lot of attention to low latency, to bounded latency, because we realized this is very, very important to production-ready events. And, so from a tech point of view, we take a lot of leadership there from a connectivity point of view. But then, of course, you have the operators who need to jump in. And I'm very happy to see that Orange took that leadership and said, we're going to give part of our spectrum, part of our system to really trial out something new, which really gives benefit to society. And we need more of, the operators to do that. We need application developers, right? So we need these Zoom++ or Teams++ of the world, platforms, easy to use. So Julia's crew doesn't have to think much. They just can plug in a microphone, they can plug in the camera, and it works out of the box. It has to be this iPhone experience, and we are not there yet. So I'm calling for all developers around the world. But last but not least, and this is really important, and I think, we don't give enough credit to this, we need people like Julia, right? So it's very simple for Julia to say, let's continue music education like we have done for the last 2,000 years. She hasn't done this, right? She has decided, hey, let's try something new. Let's really see if we can enhance the experiences, the learning outcomes, democratize things, have a broader reach. She has gone out of this comfort zone, and it wasn't easy. There's a lot of sweat, a lot of tear. It was finance, money attached to this, yet she has done it. So we need more Julias really in the world who drive this at production level and get the message out. You can do that. You can use this amazing technology to change the world, change education, change music and entertainment.
Julia, that is a call for action, is it not? Are you and your students dreaming big?
Team. Yeah.
Mischa, I have a question here from Denise Reed in London, which actually speaks to that point that you raised, which is about the app developers. Which devices are at the forefront of enabling the best Internet of Senses experiences right now? If you want to shout out at anybody, or if you want to point to a particular sense that is really being focused on, by all means. It just depends upon how you feel.
Right. So, the internet is a platform. So, it would be silly to say this is the best app, or this is the killer app, or that's the best device, right? So the beauty is that we invented a language called IP, which allows all these machines and devices to talk to each other. So there is no a priori best device out there, and we don't want it. We want a variety of devices to be used. From a music point of view, and Julia can probably give you a much more in-depth view on this, audio is very important important, and we realized it when we actually did very early experiments with the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, because we did a low latency 5G link, and the pianist realized there was a bit of latency. We optimized that, and then he was happy. And so therefore, audio needs to be full in sync. We need new codecs for that. We need new ways of embedding this in the apps. Video is very important, naturally. From a sense point of view, very interesting, you know, the notion of touch, so the tactile signal is important, but only if you're still. So we figured out, you know, the moment you start moving, your susceptibility to touch actually is going down. And that is quite important. So we tried it with the theater. Ali Hosseini, who's really a thought leader, and there's an artist I hired into our 5G project, has established that very quickly. So therefore, if you have moving parts, etc., probably for the artist on stage, transmitting touch is not so important. But for the audience sitting and listening, I think the notion of touch can be quite interesting. And then, of course, we have loads of other senses. And maybe I'm passing over to Julia just to explain us what are these 5 senses she has been experimenting with. And, you know, what was the feedback, really, in terms of immersion and, you know, being part of that experience? Julia, I don't know. Can you share more on that?
Yeah, sure. So our audiences, as I said, it was mostly students. So we took this project to like 12 different schools in Madrid. And so we reached in each school around 100 students. And the reason why we did that is because students normally from vulnerable communities don't have access to classical music. And they don't want to go to the concert hall. You know, it's pricey. They don't have any interest. And I thought that maybe by using this technology, they would be more interested in this content. You know, the feedback that we receive is that it worked really well. They were really interested in listening to the music because the immersive experience make them feel it more close to them. And what I think is going to work also very well is these phygital events. So we took the virtual reality content, and it was a workshop that it was delivered in person as well. So there was a discussion in person about what they were feeling when they were listening to the music through the real virtual glasses. And I think they could talk about emotions, about sadness, you know, happiness, etc., what they were feeling when they were listening to the music with the immersive experience. And they, you know, this blended event worked really well. So the satisfaction was really high. People felt things that they could never use before. So we gave access to an experience that it was not accessible to them before. And I think, as you were saying, more education institutions and also in general audiences, you know, that they are not used to go to concert halls. This also is a mobile, you know, the virtual reality that they can take them everywhere. The glasses is not, you don't need to go. So we are also working now on a tour to take the glasses to low population communities in Spain where there are no cultural centers. So we are taking by bus, you know, the glasses, and they are stopping in the center of the square, and the people are using the glasses to understand the content. So, you know, it's very, very positive.
I am so excited about what you guys are dreaming. You have no idea how much this scratches an itch that I have in terms of playing around with immersion and what you can do, what the possibilities are. Whether it is bringing new content to new audiences, or whether it's extending and increasing the experience with new audiences, and the possibilities as well when 6G comes down the line. That's something I want to talk about right now. Now, I also, though, want you to imagine the longer term future and really, really dream big. So, Julia, coming back to you, can you describe how you imagine the performing arts will look and feel in 2030?
I think in the next years is really going to evolve a lot. I think the essence will continue to be the same. I'm sorry to get a little cheesy, but the music is the food of our soul and that's related to our well-being and connect us with our unique human condition. So I think, as we were discussing, it's going to be more accessible. It's going to have a democratizing effect where the best music can reach new audiences and where people that traditionally don't have access, groups at risk, vulnerable communities due to health or economic circumstances, will be able to access it. And I think we're going to see a lot of hybrid models. I think live events will continue to exist, because I think when you're in a live music concert, it's really a celebration of empathy, which the audience, performers, composers live and share very deep emotions, and that is going to continue. But I think it's going to be complemented by other models in which music can be shared through technology, and where there is more immersive and participatory music using holograms, mixed reality. I think the full virtual metaverse with fans and musicians are going to be there, although I think the models still need to be seen. And also, I think it is going to have benefits in terms of remote collaboration between artists. I think rehearsals has always been a nightmare for artists, that they have to get together. And I think, this will enable remote collaboration. And that's going to be also very, very positive for artists who want to be rehearsing and also have a more balanced lifestyle.
That's a really, really important point, is that, what we certainly have all learned from the last few years is how much time we spend traveling in order to, to get together. And while certainly technologies have demonstrated that they don't quite go far enough, but if there's an opportunity to do it in a way that is hybrid, that's very exciting, because it means that people will be able to go even further. Mischa, before I jump over to you, Julia, I have a provocation for Mischa. What does Ericsson need to do in order to ensure that your vision of 2030 actually comes to pass? Oh, I don't know if you heard me.
Is that to Julia?
Oh, no, that was to Julia. That was a question to Julia. What she thinks that Ericsson needs to do. Oh, no, that's okay. That's fine. Then I'm gonna have Mischa respond to that.
Okay. No, I think I think Ericsson needs to continue to research, develop, and improve forms of connectivity. I know 6G, is big on Ericsson, and I think enable that technology is really important. And I think another thing Ericsson is doing, and I think is really important, is to put themselves in the shoes of the users, really practical application, help recipients as us, as other companies, the theaters, entertainments, musicians, think how that technology can be implemented effectively, both financially and also the ease of use. And I think what it really worked well, back to our example of the 5G concert, it was that dialogue between the technicians of Ericsson, our musicians. And I think that openness and attitude of collaboration and trust is really important for Ericsson in order to listen, what the users need, and adapt their efforts to what we need and what we can apply.
So, Mischa, therefore, what is possible looking into the 2030 future? Are all of these things that Julie has called for possible? And what else do you have down the pipeline?
Let me first answer Julie's point. So, I mean, of course, connectivity is our bread and butter, and Ericsson spends a surprisingly large amount on R&D actually to really make sure we are fit for purpose in the 5G plus and 6G era, which is really great. I just joined Ericsson, so for me that was a very positive surprise, really, to see that. Now, from the co-creation point of view, Julie, you're raising a fantastic point, and we are on it really. And I'm sitting in Silicon Valley, where we really work and co-create with large companies in the Valley, in the United West Coast here. But we need this more as a DNA across the company. And, I maybe this is what I'm going to make my charter, really bring this co-creation process into Ericsson, into the tech world, because I've seen the very same thing, right? So when the Ericsson engineers came together with musicians and artists, they just took away so much more than just, this tech is cool. This is, they had a real emotional link to what they did back then. And I'm, good friend Peter Marshall, he's really been instrumental in keeping that relationship. I think he's still smiling 3 or 4 years on from the event we did back then. So we're going to do that, and maybe we're going to reach out to you. Now, from a tech point of view, what we are up to. So, I think we're really entering this kind of renaissance phase again, okay? And I'm very excited about this. And if you think about, the arts world, actually, the artists in general are super creative, but they're not very innovative, okay? Now, the tech world is very innovative, but not very creative. So then we have, events and, workshops like Julia's or ours in London, or what we did with Jimmy Cullum, etc. These type of events bring these two worlds together. So the first day is always very frictious, but then it's really this Renaissance co-creation moment where we come together and we start to discover both. Now, both worlds are accelerating. Okay, think about it that the theater stage has not been disrupted for 2,000 years. Okay, so the artists, actors have actually been creating new content on a technology that's been around for 2,000 years. Along comes VR, 5G, fully immersive, technologies, and suddenly we have a new platform to create new art form. Hello, then the technicians realize, oh, wow, we can do actually more things. They add the sense of touch there, and suddenly the platform where we can create art has been augmented. So what I'm trying to say is that both the tech world and the art world is accelerating now. We're accelerating this Renaissance moment, and we will blur, I think, the lines between creation, co-creation, consumption, and hopefully enter a world where really we will have artists and consumers work together literally 24/7. We see this already a little bit on TikTok, where there's a lot of co-creation, and the platforms we are building allow this to do at global scale, really morphed between artists and consumers, and in any art form. So currently it's very limited to music. It's very limited to human. Think of a future where you could have actually AI co-create with you, right? Co-compose, co-act with you. You have something completely new instruments being created. And Hans Zimmer's just started looking into this with June. So we're entering now a new era where really we see ourselves as an accelerator. We provide the technology. But we need the legs of Julia, the pioneers, in saying, let's adopt this in a world which has been quite conservative for decades and for centuries and for millennia. So this is how I see the future. Let's rock and roll. Let's make that happen. We have to make this happen together.
I've seen some really extraordinary projects, specifically coming out of a couple of organizations in London, where they have been co-creating with choreography, some that have been co-creating with visual arts, but with AIs, with artificial intelligences. And it's extremely captivating, because what you have when you have creatives, you have people who are open to trying to interact and collaborate with other types of people, which means I can imagine, Julia and Mischa, that, with this idea of incorporating lots and lots of different senses, we could have collaborations with chefs. We could have collaborations with people who perhaps would have been marginalized in the past because they didn't have certain senses or whatever. So I'm wondering what you think about what the future might be when we collaborate across disciplines. Julia, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any ideas of throwing a chef into the mix and what that might do with opera or classical music?
I totally share both the optimism perspective. I think we're really in a tipping point. Really interesting to be living in this art space currently, and also I love the Renaissance concept, because I think it is exactly like that. I see we need more people who have a wide range of experiences and are open-minded, people who can connect one field to the other, that are curious and creative. I see that the new artists are much more fluid today in the sense that the boundaries has been collapsed between, media, between the kinds of art that they are labeled as art traditionally in the traditional sense, and new type of arts, from cooking to, colorful. I see also new demographics coming in, female identified works. So I think people coming from the art world, like musicians and artists, but want to leverage technology to communicate, are going to be, artists, business people, who want to make an impact in the world. I don't know, maybe Steve Jobs or Zuckerberg could be considered artists as well, chefs, educators, architects. So I think this is the beauty of it. The more you're able to, interconnect different fields, the wider options that you have to communicate through art and to actually make an impact in the world and have better lives. So I think art is collectively becoming more experiential and is more collective rather than individual. And also, I think in order to make this whole experience through art accessible to people and innovative, I think has to be sustainable. I think that's the trend that we are seeing, all over the world. And I think also using material that is sustainable in a ways that is sustainable is going to be really important, and also to evolve the arts and the entertainment industry in the future.
One other very, very important point, which is raised by Carlo on LinkedIn, and I'd love to hear, well, he and I would both love to hear both of your comments on this. And this is how we're going to round up here. Carlo says, the concert you showed is great. I'm not sure which. I'm going to assume both, besides the beautiful part. I'm thinking about how it can be monetized. I see it will benefit more socially, say in education or art, than actually having an economic benefit or even short-term profits. This is extremely important. You mentioned sustainability, both in terms of the environment, but really also in terms of how you put food on the table, how you put diapers on a baby. As I say, he and I are both curious to hear your comments about this. Julia, I'd like to come to you first, and then Carlo, I'd love to hear. Excuse me, Mischa, I'd love to hear from you.
And I think this is a very practical question, and that's also something that we have come across. And is, do people value all these, digital experience that are going to be able to pay for them? And I think this is thinking about the business models. It's really important. That's why when we're discussing about what type of people are going to be the new artists, I think there has to be also business people, because they have to think, they have to have very clear in mind, how going to pay for this. Are the users going to be enabled for it? What is the business model that is behind all these opportunities? And for instance, we are coming across different business models. So, for instance, during the pandemic, the last 2 years, we did all our concerts online and they were streaming, and we tried to monetize, and actually didn't work that well because people were fed up of so many content. So now we are seeing that blended models, where you have some of the concerts are present and some are online, and you have those online are really high quality of an immersive experience, are more able to monetize. So I think is really, really important to think about the audience. What is the audience able to pay for that? What is the purpose? Is education purpose? Is accessibility? Is for corporations? And then what is the model behind that? And as the technology is more affordable, then the business model also is more sustainable. So we are experiencing on this, and I think you need to have people with very practical mindsets behind any type of these projects.
Mischa, do you have any additional thoughts on sustainability economically, monetization?
Yeah, from a financial point of view, it's an important question, no doubt about this. So I give you a very specific example. So when we worked with RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and with Royal Camp specifically, he told me, look, Mischa, we're getting a lot of invite to tour the country, the UK, but we can't actually respond to these invites because the stage to which we're invited to is too small for both actors and for musicians. So the ability to leave your musicians behind, in London and beam them in virtually, fully immersive, very low latency, into the performance, anywhere in the country, would be a huge business case for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, because they can actually then address these opportunities. So there will be pockets of these. But overall, I think we need to think from an internet point of view. So what's the business case of the internet, right? So we have a mixer kind of environment. So we mix new art forms, you bring new art forms to life, you create new content. And this is essentially not giving you maybe direct monetable assets straight ahead, but as you start creating new art forms, you create essentially new venues to actually monetize that. And that's exactly how the internet works. So this is from the artist's point of view, but from the consumption point of view, and Julia raised a really interesting point, is that people are not willing to pay, and this is because we are used to this freemium world, right? So and get into your shoes, you're able in 2030 to consume really content. Normally, you would probably 100 years ago, you would have needed to pay a lot of money. You get this for a very affordable, if not free, experience. So looking at it from all angles, we are starting to see the emergence of that creator platform, and this is how we should approach that, really.
Super interesting. And I think that just going back to the idea of having remote performers does mean, though, that they lose out in some way on the physical experience. But Mischa, you guys have an interesting solution for that, and that goes back to this idea of haptics. So to wrap things up, just before we go, Mischa, tell us about what you are doing with haptics and the senses and entertainment right now. Can you give us just a little bit of insight into this?
Well, the key word is the Internet of Senses, or the Internet of Skills, as we've sometimes called that, the ability to not only transmit video and audio, but touch and muscle movement, so kinesthetic movement. And because every time you touch somebody, you hug something, there's so much going on from an emotional point of view. We asked a very simple question: could you do that with a future internet? Could you do that with future devices? Could you do that with future applications and enhance the experiences for the audiences of Julia in the near future to come?
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I cannot wait to walk, sing, dance, play in this future. Thank you to Julia and to Mischa, and also to everybody who contributed by sending in a question. We had such a great audience. We ran over a little bit. I apologize if you've missed your next meeting. But if you have enjoyed this broadcast, please keep commenting and keep sharing. It has been a fascinating conversation. The technology and the connectivity that we are creating today is going to open up more immersive and collaborative forms of entertainment than ever. It's going to improve accessibility. It's going to maximize for opportunities, and there's going to be a richer and more sensorial entertainment for people, regardless of location or physical ability. Please join us for our next broadcast on the 30th of June, when we're going to be looking at digital twins, where complex virtual models or twins of physical things like bridges or healthcare systems or engines can help us to measure, analyze, and improve their performance in the real world. It will no doubt be another eye-opening discussion. I can't wait to see you then.